and I am your host today. I am part of the Sharan team. Sharan stands for Sanctuary for Health and Reconnection to Animals and Nature. Our founder's name is Dr. Nandita Shah. Our mission is to empower you to reach your highest health potential with long-term lifestyle changes. Today, our speaker is Sharmila Kannan. She is a Sharan facilitator based in Delhi. She has been trained by Dr. Nandita Shah and has completed 2 courses in nutrition from E. Cornell University, one in plant-based nutrition and another in nutrition and healthy living. Today, she is going to help us understand the connection between human beings and other living beings through the 5 elements and the elements present in all living beings. Did you know that the type of food we eat is one of the cornerstones of our spiritual progress? And that from time immemorial, our great masters from different faiths have stressed upon a violence-free diet, which will help us move towards a higher goal? Sharmila will now tell us all about it and also share her knowledge with us. So over to you, Sharmila.
Okay. Thank you, Somna. And I would like to thank Dr. Nandita and Reena for giving me this fabulous platform to express my thoughts and feelings with all of you. And I would like to start with a little bit of my own journey with all of you. I became a vegan around 1.5 years ago, around which time my daughter, who was around 18 then, was watching a lot of videos of Western animal rights activists like Gary Yourofsky, James Wildman, etc. And at some point, she announced that she wants to go vegan. By that time, I had also watched some videos which one of my friends had sent me about the dairy industry in India. And that really convinced me that I should go vegan, and it is high time we all did it. Small drops in the ocean do matter, and finally. So I turned vegan, and the very positive fallout of this decision was my daughter, who had been suffering, let's say, for 16 odd years, right from the time of her own birth, with psoriasis on the scalp. So her scalp used to be covered with around a ½ centimeter thick dandruff, which wouldn't go away no matter what I did. I had tried various kinds of treatments with not very long lasting positive results. And that went away within 3 months flat. Now imagine after, let's say, 18 years of her birth, I finally managed to see a pink clear scalp. And that was nothing less than a miracle for me. That was an extremely positive fallout, as dairy is responsible for a lot of autoimmune diseases in the human body. So once you leave dairy, all those diseases are automatically gone. Now she is totally without any medication, with her scalp as healthy as can be. That is one thing. Secondly, as far as my own meditation is concerned, I have been meditating for the last 23 years or so. With the last 12 years, I have been clocking more than 2 hours daily of meditation. And I have realized that diet has a very strong role to play in our meditation also. So this is what I would like to share with all of you. So now I would like to start my screen share. Please give me a minute. Yeah, so here we are. Today we are going to talk about the diet through the cosmic lens and how it affects our meditation. Today, when we leave after this session is over at around 7:30, I would like to, my mission, my purpose of coming here, I would consider it solved or accomplished if all of us live as one soul, united in the path that we have set forth before us, strengthened, emboldened, steadfast with all the knowledge that we have been able to get through this platform of Sharan, with all our fabulous presenters coming forward with their cooking skills before you, and our other presenters who are coming forward with their information about compassion, about the environment, about health reasons of going vegan. I feel that once we learn the cosmic reasons also, our learning is complete. So we will be able to answer questions of a lot of people who come in touch with us in our daily lives, whether as relatives, as friends, as people who are simply curious, who may not do anything about it, but a seed is sown in them of compassion, of health, of environment, and to complete the whole circle, the diet through the cosmic lens also. So all kinds of reasonings are there before you. There is no stopping us now. Let us begin. Let's see what the cosmic lens says. See, all of us, or many of us, may be able to clock 15, 20 minutes of meditation on a daily basis. So sitting quietly in one place, just chanting or something, many of us may be able to do. But when we want to reach higher levels or other levels of awareness, like the awakening of the chakras, etc., their diet starts playing an extremely important role. Once you reach samadhi, there is no question of a diet also, then nature sustains you. But before that, a change in diet becomes absolutely necessary. So let us see what has been said in India itself about diet. Around 2000 years back, there was this Tamil saint, poet, Tiruvalluvar, who has written about health, which can be attained by food taken as medicine. One who knows his digestive system and feeds his body just sufficient to needs no other medicine. Can you imagine that somebody in India has said this, that food is your medicine and you have to understand your digestive system? 2000 years back. Maybe many of us who are residing outside Tamil Nadu do not even know that there was this Tamil saint who has written this about food. But believe me, in India, there is abundance of knowledge. We just have to look for it. Again, Tirukural by Tiruvalluvar. The grace of mercy saves the universe from being tossed by the swirling winds of mighty space. Allal arul alvarukku illai valivazhangum mallalma nyalam kari. The Tamil is archaic, so I've used translations. And the pic on the right side is of the tsunami hitting Japan. Now, here the grace of mercy can be taken in two interpretations. One, you can say that the grace of mercy by the Lord, but it is also the grace of mercy by humankind towards other humans and towards other sentient beings. Otherwise, why would the nature have mercy on us when we don't have mercy towards other sentient beings, right? This is from chapter 25, verse 245. Pandemic still now. See how we are treating nature and how the nature itself is conducting raids on us, if we may call it that way. The picture on the right is of from the COVID in India. There was the Ugandan African epidemic from 1900 to 1920, 2-3 lakh casualties. There was the Spanish flu in 1918, 1920, 1.7 to 10 crore casualties. There was the chikungunya India 2006, which again caused hundreds of casualties. There was the swine flu in 2009, causing 250,000 plus casualties. United States flu, 60,000 plus casualties. And the COVID-19 now, where we have clocked more than 4 lakh casualties up to now. Is this what we are asking nature to give us? Why is the nature doing all this? Let us see in the coming slides. Thyroid, early puberty, obesity, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, blood pressure, polycystic ovaries. All these diseases, they were not so common a few decades back. Now, not only are they common, but they are hitting the younger generation also. So many girls have problems of early puberty. So many of us have thyroid problems. So many of us are obese now. Many of us are diabetic. In fact, diabetes is a very common household name in India now. Cancer, heart disease, blood pressure, polycystic ovaries. You name the disease and we seem to be having it. Why? That is because we don't understand what the cosmos has planned for us, or we interpret it incorrectly in a manner that we are unable to follow what nature is trying to tell us. See what the cosmos has planned for us and what we are doing instead. There are, see, 5 elements in the human body: Jal, Vayu, Agni, Prithvi, and Akash. In English, not exactly in the same order. It is sky, air, fire, water, land. These are the 5 elements. Now, let us take Jal or water. We drink water. We excrete water through urine, also through stool. We have water within us. The human body is around 60% water. Vayu, we breathe in, breathe out. Air is formed even in the gut. We have air within us. Now Agni, now where is this fire element? The food which is digested in our stomach is due to the acids which are formed in the stomach. Had it not been for the mucus lining, the acid is so strong that it will burn a hole through the stomach wall. Now what is this Agni? It is not actually the fire which cooks your food, but the heat is definitely there, right? The acid is producing heat. Not only that, our nervous system emits electrical impulses also. Then the embryo which turns into a fetus, it turns into fetus because of the heat in the uterus also. A component of heat is there. In Hindi, it is called Jataragni. I do not have the equivalent in English. Now that is the fire element in the body. Prithvi, or the earth element. Now the heavier portion of our body, you know, the bone, the skin, the muscles, the internal organs, which all provide weight. Now that is the Prithvi, or the earth element. Now, what is this Akash, or the ether element, sky element, or ether we can call it? Now, this Akash Tattva, or this earth sky element, is our thinking capacity. The capacity to discern between the right and the wrong, to decide what I want and what I don't want, what I should do, what I should not do. And the capacity to memorize, learn, then recite, reproduce what we have learned. And the capacity to meditate, which no other being on this planet has. The human being, fortunately, has the capacity to dwell on the divine, which we cannot say that animals and birds also possess. Now, this is the Akash Tattva. The same elements are present in all living beings in various degrees. Let us see that in the coming slides. All plant environment or plant life has only one element, which is water. I have done it. We all know it. For curiosity, you can do it. Pick up any fruit or any vegetable and leave it on your windowsill. Just make sure that it is not pecked at by birds. Now see it after 20 days, what happens. Even if it is the brinjal or even a big pineapple with a thicker skin, eventually it starts decomposing. It starts releasing water. And finally, the only element that is left in it is nothing. It becomes very light. The actual weight then is only 10% of the original weight. It totally dries up. The water totally evaporates. Eventually insects are formed. It is gone. And that is only because of the presence of this one element, which is water. Now, what happens when you line up a tomato after a tomato to chop them? They don't plead with you for mercy. They don't scream. They don't say, please save me because I'm feeling pain. They don't try to escape. Again, why? Because of the presence of only one element, which reduces their capacity to feel pain. They don't run away. If you put it in a pot of water, the tomato will stay there. It does not feel pain. Even though scientifically it has been proven that vegetables also feel pain, but the degree to which they feel pain cosmically is far less. Let us go to the other categories of sentient beings. Now from this category onwards, which is the insect or the reptile kingdom, there are two elements. Either it is earth and fire, or this is air and fire. Now, this air and fire is contained in those living beings which are very lightweight. Like you take any kind of butterfly or just a fly or a mosquito, they are able to fly, right? Their body weight is very less. So the earth element is negligible. It is not considered. They have air within them. And a little bit of fire element is required for the digestion of food. Now let us go to the more heavier, the reptile kingdom in the same category. Now snake or a crocodile, these are heavier animals, right? Heavier beings. They have a lot of earth element in them because there is a body weight to be considered, right? So these have earth and they have fire. Now, other elements may also be there. Water may be there, air may be there, but the degree is so negligible that it is not considered for the purpose of attributing capacity to feel pain. Now look at this. The crayfish, which is going to be put in a pot, in one of the images it has got a claw, in the other image it has removed its own claw to escape the boiling pot. In fact, you would notice that even if you try to swat a mosquito, the mosquito tries to run away. If you scurry behind the cockroach tries to run away from you, because the vibration of the human feet or something that is coming close to it, something that may be dangerous to its own health. So these, from this category onwards, they start feeling the danger to themselves, right? The tomato doesn't do it. If you go near a tomato, it will not try to run away. If you go near any vegetable, it will not feel any danger to it. But from this category onwards, they start doing it. Why? Because of the presence of this another element in the body. Let us go to the third category. Now, the third category is occupied by the bird kingdom. They have air, fire, and water in there. Now, the air element. See, if you take a chicken also and you pluck its feathers, many of us who have been non-vegetarians earlier, there is a lot of feather in that, right? It is lightweight. All the birds are light. They have lots of feathers in their body. That is why they are able to fly, right? Then they are drinking water. Water is considered. Fire element is there before the digestion of food. The earth element is not considered because their bodies are very light, and not even the sky element, because again, the presence is very less or instinctive. It does not give them much capacity. That is what the saints are saying. Let us go to the fourth category. Now here see, the caged bird, with whatever biological instruments nature has given it, the caged bird also with its beak and its claws tries to bite the cage. It is feeling the pain of being fettered, of being kept in captivity. How do we feel after so many months of lockdown, right? Don't we want to go out? Don't we want to fly, go out, walk, run, do so much? Can we imagine how the bird feels in its cage? It's really painful. Actually, we do not think about these things. We put animals in zoos, we put animals in cages, and we show them as our pets or beings that we have captured, and we use them as showcase items. But they feel a lot of pain. Now let's go to the other category. Now come the four-legged animals. The four-legged animals have air, water, fire, and earth. They are very heavy-bodied animals, right? So the earth element is considered. Then they have air, they are breathing in, breathing out. They have water because they are drinking water, they are excreting water through urine, like us. The fire element is there very strongly because they are heavy consumers also, they eat, right? The brain or the sky element is also there, but it is not considered because it is not as developed as in a human being. They also have feelings, they also understand, they also feel pain, but still lesser than the human being. Let us see. Do you think this goat which is hiding behind the wall doesn't understand what is the human being doing to its companion? Doesn't it understand that maybe its own turn is next? The goat is hiding behind the wall because he is able to understand. He is not able to speak, but he hears the scream of his own companion before death, and he realizes that his turn may be next. So out of fear with the human being, he is hiding behind the wall and watch his own companion being done away. Now comes the human being. The air, water, fire, earth, and ether. All five elements are fully developed and present with their full capacity in the human being. If you try attacking a human, he will plead with you for mercy, he will scream in pain, or he will try to attack you back with whatever instrument he can get. He will try to save his life, he will try to escape. All capacities are fully developed in the human form. Unfortunately, somewhere the human misery is poignant, and we understand the pain only of the human being. To an extent, we are beginning to understand that of other sentient beings. This is a picture from the famine of the 1900s. The capacity to feel pain and emotion is dependent upon the number of elements present in a living being's body. Now, who has said this and who has decided this? in the times of yore, when our saints and seers were meditating in the forest for several years alone in isolation, they realized that we can survive only by eating something that gives us life. Right? We cannot eat stones and live. We have to eat something that has life, beginning with the fruit and the vegetable category. So what were they eating? If you just think back, they were eating kandumul, or they were called falahari, fal plus ahar. They were eating fruits, or kandumul, nuts and fruits and berries that you would find on the forest floor. They were not cultivating, they were meditating. But they realized that this is there. So they divided these all living beings into these 5 categories on the basis of the elements present in them. And this is to explain to the future generations what they are supposed to choose in terms of food items. The explanation has been given for us to understand. Unfortunately, with the passage of time, we tend to forget that. I have seen several families where the parents are vegetarians, but the children turn non-vegetarian. And when children ask why have we to do it, the parents somewhere are unable to give a very well, conclusive, reasonable explanation. So what the children say is, okay, let us experiment and go ahead. So this kind of a thing has happened. But earlier, when children used to live with their teachers in the ashramas and all, they were explained and they knew what they were doing. They did it fully aware of the consequences also, perhaps. Let us go to the next slide. Now, let us understand the presence of elements in this manner. Let's say I, Sharmila, come to your house and I start plucking leaves from your garden. Or I pick up an apple or a banana from the fridge, I chop it and I start eating it. What will you feel? I do this without asking you. Maybe you know me, maybe you don't. Please write in the chat box, what will be the emotion? I would like to know that. Please, all of you, please write in the chat box. Somna, you can tell me what people have written.
Yes, people are taken aback, surprised basically. Yes, some say anger, shocked. Yes,
yeah? Okay, let us go to the next slide.
Surprised, taken aback.
Taken aback, right? You'll be more taken aback now. Now, what if Sharmila enters your kitchen, sees a cockroach or any small insect scurrying by and squishes it under her feet? Please write in the chat box, what will you feel? Annoyance? Irritation? Crazy woman? What would you feel? So now you can tell me what everybody is writing.
Taken aback, crazy, not good. Some will feel pain, no manners.
Yeah. No manners. Yeah. See, somebody who has more patience will say that, Sharmila, why don't you come? Let us have a chat. We keep our kitchen and our household clean. We can manage these things ourselves. Why are you doing it? You need not kill a cockroach or a lizard. I catch hold of a lizard and dangle it in front of you, kind of a thing. You may not like it, right? Let's go to the next slide. Now, one of you has a pet parrot somewhere in the balcony or inside the house. What I do is I simply go and open the cage and release the parrot, or I somehow hurt the bird. Please write in the chat box, what will you feel? How will you feel? Please write down your emotions. I would like to know that.
Puzzled, anger, angry, utter shock and disbelief, insensitive, confused, hurt.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you will be shocked further with what I plan to do. You have a very beautiful pet. This pet, a 4-legged animal. Whether it is a cat, a dog, a cow, please write in the chat box, what would you feel and how would you react? Perhaps you would ask me to apologize. You would expect me to apologize profusely. You may even seek compensation both for the bird and for the dog. Please write in the chat box, what would you like to do with me? So now tell me, what have the participants written?
Yeah, they're saying now they've started typing. They're saying hurt, feel very hurt. They will want to punish you. And they will, somebody saying, I would leave home. I'd chuck you out of my house, ask you to leave my house. I'll be very angry. Beautiful. Some people are saying that they'd forgive you. Some people are saying they'll be very careful.
Yeah,
Yes.
beautiful. See, you don't have to know me, or you don't even have to know whether I did it intentionally or unintentionally. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going on a road with your car, imagine you bang your car into somebody, whether it was intentional or unintentional. If the damage is severe, wouldn't you be asked to pay a compensation? It is simple logic. Let us go to the next slide. You have a lovely little baby sleeping in the pram or sitting there. I harmed this child. Lovely participants, please write in the chat box, what would your emotion be now? So now as they start writing, you can tell me.
Yeah. We just started. I will
Yeah.
punish you. I will harm you. I will be very angry. I will be very, very angry. I will punish you, abuse you profusely, and
Yeah.
I will slap you. I will harm you. I will hurt you back. I'll be very angry. I will forgive you, but be cautious with you the next time.
Yeah, definitely. See, when I hurt the child, you would want, and if I hurt her big time, you would want to call the police, you would claim compensation, you would want the highest punishment for me, nothing less than that. And why? The simple human brain is so designed to think in a very logical and reasonable manner. It understands that there is a difference between eating of an apple, the killing of a cockroach, the hurting of a bird, the four-legged animal, and the human child. Now, if the human being has brain so clearly divided over various sentient beings, why do we assume that nature does not do it? Nature is very practical, very logical, very reasonable, and very compassionate. Now, see, even when we breathe, I am killing millions of microorganisms which are entering my respiratory tract and getting killed. Even when I wash myself, the way I rub my hands, I'm killing again millions or how many thousands, I don't know, of microorganisms. Even if I wave my hand in the air, microorganisms are still dying. But this is a kind of destruction which nature understands that it is unavoidable. But it is very calculative. It says that wherever it is understandable and clear, the humankind has to simply avoid. Feel the pain of others. पीड़ा सबकी एक सी, जो जाने वो पीर, दूजी पीड़ न जानसी, वो काफिर बेपीर. Sri Kabir Das ji has said this. Everybody's pain. Those who understand it are enlightened. Those who do not understand another's pain are non-believing and without a guru. Now here the word Bepir has been used in two senses. In the first, it is enlightened, aware. In the second, it is somebody who is without a guru. That is, there is nobody to teach you, right? That this is what you're supposed to do and this is what you're not supposed to do. The rest is clear. Now, even the huge tusker is able to understand the love of this boy. Animals do understand and feel pain. It is up to us to realize that they are able to understand and spare them that pain and torture which we routinely inflict upon them, right? Let us go to the next slide. So, what am I supposed to do? Our ancestors were primates. Eat like me. This is our food, actually. This is our food. And this, see, when I used to meditate, when I was consuming, this was seven years back around, a meal of dinner, or let's say a dinner meal consisting of rice, chapati, or dal, or rajma, or vegetables, I used to feel really heavy. And I could not sit for a long time with my hands on the side like that and the spine straight, eyes closed. I used to fall asleep because a heavy meal makes you fall asleep, right? So around 7 years back, I gave up on dinner and I was managing, but I was feeling a bit weak physically. So, but I continued because that was a primary interest and it was very strong within me. Now when I have joined Sharan, and I shifted to green smoothies in the morning, the salad bowl or the fruit bowl, I feel very strong and energetic. Ladies and gentlemen, it is easy to sit for 15-20 minutes, or it's easy to talk to your friends with your eyes wide open, even till 2 a.m. in the morning. But it is very difficult to keep your eyes shut and sit in meditation, spine operate for longer durations with a heavy stomach, and you won't have the energy. You will fall asleep. It's but natural. So here, a change in diet helps. For smaller levels, let's say 15-20 minutes or half an hour, as I said, big time change in diet may not be required. But raw vegan food is absolutely required when you want to prolong it for longer durations. We will see the benefits of this. We all know that Shabari gave Lord Ram bear to eat, right? So what is bear? It is fruits and berries that she found in the forest. She did not give him any cooked meal. Now, in ancient India, food was always divided into 3 categories. Let's understand this also. Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic, right? Sattvic diet. Now, from Sattvic diet, earlier dairy was included in the Sattvic diet, but considering the current scenario, we better exclude dairy from this. Now, all kinds of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains are included in the Sattvic diet. It's the diet that we can consume and we should consume. Sattvic diet promotes love, calm, peace, compassion, strength of mind and body. It rejuvenates, it heals, it improves memory, it denotes intelligence. It makes us aware of our own selves. Sattvic is something that is very good, very beautiful, very, very peaceful within you. Once it goes into you, it doesn't promote any negative feelings. Rajas means passion. It does not actually mean passion in the physical sense of the term. It could be your passion in anything you do, in your job, in any activity that you do with passion, creativity, arts, music, running, sports, anything you take with a lot of passion, that is Rajas. That kind of passion is required also. But it includes onion and garlic in excess, tea and coffee, or something that is too pungent, too hot, too salty, or highly processed. That is something that has an external stimulant in it. Now, when you're on a Sharan diet, you need not worry, because onion and garlic, how much will you consume? You can't consume half a kilo of it on a daily basis. You will be including it as part of salad or part of salad dressing. So that is perfectly fine. You're eliminating tea and coffee. You're not adding too pungent, too hot, or too salty or processed foods from outside. So here you can take it easy. Tamasic diet. Now, I would include dairy here because, again, of prevailing situations. So it consists of cigarette, it consists of alcohol, it consists of meat, fish, dairy, everything. Tamas actually in Sanskrit means darkness. It promotes ignorance, anger, lust, depression, negative emotions like hatred, violence. Our capacity to feel for others is largely reduced. When we have meat on our plate, what is it actually? It is actually a dead body which is being cooked or uncooked. As Westerners are usually used to having it uncooked also. It's raw meat, but we cook it, we add lots of spices to it because we cannot have it raw, right? And what is that going to promote? It has a very low frequency vibration. It does not have a life. It decreases our capacity to think also, because the brain is supposed to be made of very fine particles of the food we eat. Let us go to the next slide. Effects of food derived through violence. Animal flesh makes our heart cruel and unfit for higher knowledge. Compassion is the first step towards an understanding of the higher cosmic levels. Now, nature is very compassionate. It cannot withstand cruelty towards other sentient beings done unnecessarily. Again, what is forgivable is when we are breathing, when we are moving about and doing our daily chores, when we are walking on the road, we may be killing hundreds of ants which come under our feet. Now, that is unavoidable, right? But whatever is avoidable has to be avoided. That is what is meant. Nature is not unreasonable. It is actually very, very reasonable. But we have to understand nature and interpret it. It is the interpretation where we generally go wrong. The mankind goes wrong in interpreting nature. Meat has a very low frequency vibration. There is nothing in it. It is actually dead, right? And since we are conditioned due to years of whatever training we have got, we continue to have it. And then when you are on a path of spirituality, nature itself blocks your path to progress when you are on a food derived through violence. Initially, you may not realize it. You may continue your meditation, but as you progress in it, you will realize that you're supposed to reduce this, you're supposed to reduce that. Just like I gave up on heavy dinners 7 years back, and I haven't had it since, and I feel no need for it also. I'm perfectly fine and quite energetic. Now let's see what our scriptures say. Sikhism. Keep your heart content and cherish compassion for others. This way alone can your holy vow be fulfilled. Shri Guru Granth Sahib, page 299. Man santok sarab jiya daya, in bin bharat sampurna bhaya. What does Islam say? If you hurt someone, the Creator is not happy. Even if you worship in 1,000 ways, fast 1,000 times, and each fast offer namaz thousands of times, spend 1,000 nights remembering him. Hazar juhdo ibadat, hazar istighfar, hazar roza o har roza ra namaz hazar, hazar taute shab ha hazar bedari, kabul neest agar khyatare mazari. Maghribi. Christianity, God himself proclaims, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing tree, in which the fruit of the tree yielding seed, it unto you shall be for meat. Genesis 1:29. Hinduism. The 10 rules of conduct are ahimsa, truth, non-stealing, continence, forgiveness, tolerance, compassion, soft-spokenness, sparing diet, and cleanliness. This is from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika by Swat Marama around the year 1350. Ata yamanemaha ahimsa satyamasteyam brahmacharyam kshamadrite dayarjavam mitaharaha shaucham chaiva yamadasha. These are the 10 rules, 10 code of conduct for a person who wants to progress on the spiritual path, to somebody who has to meditate. The first rule that he has to follow is ahimsa. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're sitting calmly one day, let's assume that you have changed your diet also, or if you have not, you will change it. You feel that you're ready for assimilating further knowledge, to imbibe further knowledge within yourselves. And you can do it, you want to do it. Or many of us may be feeling it, that despite having very loving spouses, very understanding, obedient children, around you, affectionate friends, and affectionate relatives also, somewhere there is an emptiness. Somewhere you feel, what is the purpose of my life? Please understand, this is the yearning of the soul for the divine. The soul cannot come and talk to us directly. This is how we start feeling. We feel a certain degree of emptiness or sadness, despite the supposed fabulous life that we have around us. Now, if any of you is going through that, what should we do? What should our further course of action be? Let us see it in the next slide. If you haven't yet changed your diet, please change your diet to raw foods first. To include more raw foods, this raw smoothie, the fabulous salad revolution, which has been started by Sharon, that is absolutely wonderful. It is for each one of us to understand that we have to include salads. And normally, had it not been for the salad revolution, we did not have a concept of salad in our foods, right? What we were doing was we would cut just one onion, one tomato, one cucumber, kheera, and one radish, and that was the salad. No, a salad can be a complete meal. So you have to absolutely go more towards raw foods, because it energizes you in ways that you really, really, really should not be missing out on. Help others, grow spiritually, and help others to do so. It is the meaning of life. Leo Tolstoy. You feel alive to the degree that you feel you can help others. John Travolta. Now, John Travolta has not said this with reference to vegan food or raw food diet, but I have used it here because it is extremely apt. Now, the thing is that we have to help others. But when we are physically unwell ourselves, there is no way we can help others. We feel, मेरे से अपने ही काम नहीं होते, मैं किसी की क्या मदद कर सकती हूँ, मैं खुद बीमार हूँ. So the first thing that you have to do to help others is help yourself first. You have to change your diet. Absolutely. Include more of raw, feel healthy so that you feel alive and you want to help others. Now, wait a minute, there is another aspect here. Ladies and gentlemen, do you actually think I walk the talk? Isn't this a common refrain that you have heard so many times? Be good, do good to others, be compassionate and all. Isn't everybody saying it? Do I walk the talk actually? Am I helping others? Let us see it in the subsequent slide. This lady in the light purple sari used to work for me as a live-in maid some years back. Now, at some point, she mentioned that she was a child widow, Bal Vidva, married off and widowed at an age when she did not understand the meaning of marriage. As she was working with me and she narrated her story to me, I felt very touched. She fortunately found somebody who was willing to her, knowing her story, and I got her married in my own house, as you can see from the slide on the right-hand side. And I gave her everything that a woman requires for starting a new family life. So now she's a happily married mother of 2 kids, and the second boy was born just 2 days back. I'm yet to see him. Now, what else can we do? One thing is we change our diet. Secondly, we become compassionate. The third thing to understand is that, ladies and gentlemen, you are extremely important. You have a purpose in this world. So we are all living for others. We are all at this point living for others. Whatever we earn, whatever we are doing in our daily lives, predominantly it goes to benefit our relatives and close family members. But you are also important. If you, the meditation is perhaps the only thing that you will ever be doing for yourself. You don't meditate for others, right? Whereas you eat also for yourself and for others, because next meal you have to cook and you have to feel energetic for that. And your earning also goes majority to others, family members. But you are also important. You have to understand this. And meditation is an act of extreme self-love also, right? So go to bed at a reasonable time. Get up early, let's say 4 a.m. If it is very difficult for you to get up at 4, you can get up at 5, but at a time when nobody is going to ask you for a cup of tea or coffee and you don't have to enter the kitchen. Like you don't have to get ready for office at that time. That is the time which is actually the me time, you time, right? Do some exercises, some physical activity, recite, chant, as per the faith, as per the community that you belong to, whatever you can chant. Even Vaheguru, Vaheguru would be absolutely fine. Depends. It's your choice. Remember that relations will come and go. Your own children, they come through you, but they don't actually belong to you. The moment the doctor cuts the umbilical cord, you establish a separate identity for the child. The child does not belong to you. It has come into this world with its own purpose in life. And the same thing is true of all other relations. You will have to start taking care of yourselves also. And not be too engrossed in the life of the child or relations, not to the extent that it impedes your own spiritual growth, right? And once you send a positive affirmation to the cosmos that you want to advance in the path to spirituality, believe me that somewhere in the galaxy, there is an extremely powerful server, the cosmic server, which will receive the message and it will be directed back to planet Earth to your perceptor. So you will get, rest assured. Form a good relation with yourself. Don't be angry with yourself for what you are or what you have been or what you are able to do and not able to do. It's perfectly all right. You can improve. There is always a time. There is always a time for everything. So you connect with yourself first. In fact, when you're meditating, the first thing you do is you connect with yourself and then you connect with the divine. It's your connection with yourself which starts working when you start meditating. And this will help in your meditation. A good relation with yourself will help you in sitting for meditation. And as you sit for meditation, you will start having a good relationship with yourself. It works to both ways. What can you read actually? I would strongly recommend this book, The Detox Miracle Source book by Robert Morse. Why? Because he is a doctor, somebody from a science background who always had, since childhood, a very strong connect with the cosmos. He wanted that divine revelation also, and he was looking forward to it. And he has spent several years in isolation on, in fact, a plant-based diet that is just surviving on oranges. And in this book, on page 3 and 4, he writes about his extra out-of-the-body experience also, which he experienced when he was on raw foods. So this will perform the twin task of not only explaining how you can detoxify your body, but it will also connect you that science is actually connected to spirituality, but it is a relatively new subject. He does not explain everything or what the process was and how he did it, but he talks about it. And he's from a science background, he's a doctor. Listen to inspiring talks like Louise Hay, Sister Shivani, Acharya Prashant. There is the Supreme Master Ching Hai also. You can listen to any master you like, but these are some of them that I at times listen to. Benefits of meditation. Now, meditation is a very, very strong antidote to depression. Ladies and gentlemen, these days depression has taken the lives of so many people. Some of them have been in the recent past we have come to know, but believe me, if you meditate, you will not go into depression. And if you are already feeling something similar to that, if you sit in meditation, you will come out of your depression. Meditation is extremely powerful and an extremely strong antidote. It is also powerful against insomnia. How does this work? Now let me explain. See, when we are awake, the soul and the mind reside at a point between the two eyes, somewhere here, right? Because why? What happens? See, when you are thinking, you will inadvertently touch your forehead and say, "मैं क्या सोच रही थी, याद क्यों नहीं आ रहा है?" You will not touch any other part of your body. You will touch your forehead. Why? Because the soul and the mind, they reside there and they spread their energy throughout the body, right? When you try to bring your concentration, when you close your eyes, if you close your eyes for a second, you can see darkness in front of you, right? And if you try to concentrate in that darkness, you will fall asleep. What happens when students are attending classes? They are frequently sleeping. Why? Because that calm ambience, that looking within you promotes sleep. So not only depression, but it works against insomnia also. People who cannot sleep should actually sit in meditation. And this is something which I have personally tried. So if I'm not getting any sleep at night, I simply sit in meditation. I fall asleep if the body requires sleep. So once you have slept for a certain number of hours, those who meditate regularly are said to require only about 6 hours of sleep in a day. So once that basic requirement of the body is fulfilled, you can again sit again. It improves self-esteem. If you're people, normally we are very much against our own selves, right? We don't like ourselves many a times. We don't have a soft, beautiful conversation with ourselves. So meditation actually helps you have a higher self-esteem because you connect with the divine in some format. It helps you develop that power within, that it really makes you feel stronger within. And small incidents, believe me, if you continue meditating on a daily basis without giving up, it's not something that you should do one day and not do the other 2 days. You can start with smaller times and you can improve upon it gradually. They stop provoking you. You don't get so angry. You don't get so upset. It really, really helps. You just have to start doing it. That's it. And if for some reason fate has not been, or let's say that you're alone for whatever reason, you start liking being alone. You start enjoying that loneliness and that silence. Normally, any other person who's not meditating would feel lonely. If life is such that he has to remain alone, he would feel lonely. It's normal, common behavior for all human beings. But somebody who meditates, he starts liking being alone. Trust me, it works exactly like this because I have experienced it, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, शरण की शरण में आने के बाद मेरी कई सारी उलझनें सुलझ गई. आपसे भी यही गुजारिश है, हमारा हाथ थामिए और हमारी शरण में आइए, शरण की शरण में आइए. आप कभी निराश नहीं होंगे. थैंक यू.